We're digesting a truly wild 24 hours of news today. Actually, we're going to dedicate a big chunk of our time right up front to an absolute sports miracle on the basketball court, one that completely shattered 30 years of statistics. And then we'll wrap up with some breaking global headlines that are impacting millions of people right now. Let's get right into it. Okay, let's take a quick look at today's packed agenda. We'll start with a historic playoff comeback, break down the tactics and matchup hunting, and look at the shifting NBA Finals odds. Then we'll cover how Texas Storm's ground flights, reflect on remembering Barney Frank, and finish the whole shebang with some pop culture quick hits. Section 1, a historic playoff comeback. The Knicks erase a 22-point deficit. So picture this. We're in Madison Square Garden. It's May 19th, Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. The Knicks hadn't played in 9 days after sweeping the 76ers, and man, the rust was showing big time against the Cleveland Cavaliers. For a long, long while, this game looked entirely out of reach. Just look at the sheer scale of this deficit. We're talking 7 minutes and 52 seconds left in the fourth quarter, and the Knicks are trailing by a staggering 22 points. The score is 93-71. The game seemed completely, utterly over. The fans in the Garden? Dead quiet. An opening night home loss just felt inevitable. To really wrap your head around how impossible this situation was, consider this crazy stat. Over the last 30 years, teams trailing by 22 or more points in the fourth quarter of a playoff game held a jaw-dropping 594-1 record. 594-1. History was practically guaranteeing a Cleveland victory. The literal only other time a team survived a hole like this was when the Clippers came back from 24 down against Memphis way back in 2012. So somebody had to step up, right? And that somebody was Jalen Brunson. He just relentlessly willed his team back from the dead. Brunson puts up 38 points and 6 assists, sparking this massive run that somehow ties the game at 101 with barely 19 seconds left in regulation. He forces overtime, and from there, the Knicks just completely take over to secure a 115-104 win. Unreal. Moving on to Section 2, Tactics and Matchup Hunting. How Cleveland collapsed. Because look, a comeback this historic doesn't just happen because one team tries harder. It requires a total systemic breakdown on one side and some absolute strategic genius on the other. The international media absolutely did not hold back on the Cavs' total collapse in that final quarter. I mean, Sports Chosen noted that Cleveland moved like a corpse, giving up a massive 18-1 run. They completely lost all pressure and were totally isolated out there. But why did they freeze up so badly? Well, it all comes down to matchup hunting. If you're not familiar, this is an offensive strategy where a team repeatedly forces defensive switches, specifically to isolate and attack a weaker defender. And New York executed this ruthlessly. They specifically targeted the slow footwork and defensive lapses of Cleveland's James Harden down the stretch. What's super fascinating here is the stark contrast in coaching. Cleveland's coach, Kenny Atkinson, essentially trusted Harden's one-on-one defense and just refused to pull him to the bench, despite some really glaring issues. On the flip side, the Knicks countered brilliantly. They threw out a lineup featuring 5 shooters, subbing in Landry Shamet for Josh Hart. This perfectly spaced the floor. It meant absolutely no Cleveland defender could slide over to help Harden without leaving a deadly three-point shooter wide open. The end result? Harden gave up continuous, completely uncontested driving lanes to Brunson. Section 3. Shifting NBA Finals odds. The betting markets react. Now, unsurprisingly, a catastrophic Game 1 collapse like this sent absolute shockwaves through the sports betting world. Odds makers had to frantically recalculate the whole board based on New York's resilience and Cleveland's sudden vulnerability. The new landscape is completely flipped. The Knicks leaped way up the odds board to plus 400 to win the NBA Finals, sitting right behind the Thunder at plus 125 and the Spurs at plus 155. Meanwhile, the Cavaliers plummeted all the way down to plus 3,000. It just goes to show how literally one historic quarter of basketball can completely rewrite the narrative of an entire season. Section 4. Texas Storm's ground flights. FAA halts travel at DFW. Okay, shifting our focus from the basketball courts to the skies, severe weather is causing absolute chaos right now just ahead of the busy Memorial Day weekend. Mother Nature is seriously throwing a wrench into holiday travel across the South. Over 350 flights were suddenly canceled at Dallas-Fort Worth International. The FAA actually had to step in and issue a strict ground stop, just halting air traffic completely as heavy rain and super low visibility rolled through the metro area. And this wasn't just your standard spring shower. These were fast-moving, severe thunderstorms bringing very real threats of large hail and damaging winds. Airlines had to proactively pull their ground crews off the tarmac just to protect them from dangerous lightning strikes. That left thousands of holiday travelers stranded, with average passenger wait times easily topping an hour. And the ripple effect was massive. It even caused 55 additional cancellations and nearly 90 delayed flights over at nearby Dallas Love Field. Section 5. Remembering Barney Frank, a Political Legacy. Turning now to our national news desk, we're taking a moment to objectively look at the passing of a highly influential figure in American politics at the age of 86. Barney Frank leaves behind a truly massive, landmark legacy in Congress. A liberal firebrand, he fundamentally altered financial regulations after the 2008 crisis as a key architect behind the Dodd-Frank Wall Street reform. On top of that, he stands as a noted pioneer in America's LGBTQ political revolution. Honestly, whether you view his politics from the left or the right, his historical impact on the country is just undeniable. Section 6, Pop Culture Quick Hits, The Boys, Season 5. Finally, let's wrap up today's explainer with a super quick dive into a global pop culture trend lighting up the internet right now. Sometimes the best way to gauge global hype for a show is to just look at its digital footprint. Well, Wikipedia pages for Season 5 of the hit series The Boys have just been rapidly updated across 6 different languages. This sudden flurry of multi-language updates really highlights the massive, mounting international anticipation for the next installment of the series. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive today. We've seen a lot of wild volatility, haven't we? I mean, when the statistics say a 22-point comeback is literally impossible, or a sudden spring storm completely grounds thousands of flights, it certainly makes you wonder what tomorrow will bring. So, how do you prepare for the truly unexpected? Keep that question in mind today. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.